What's up, everybody? My name's Big Cam and welcome back to another Monday morning comically Boston weekly nerdy news podcast, and I'm your host Big Cam. And today we have not too busy a week. Over the last week there wasn't too much news that came out, not like too many trailers or anything that dropped. And if there was any news that I missed, please send that my way. But just brief news before we get into the main topic I want to talk about today. And if you saw the title and thumbnail, Spider-Man Brand New Day is going to be the next Marvel movie that comes out. I mean, the next Marvel project that comes out, I think, is in January with Wonder Man, which should be good. But as far as Marvel movies, the next film that Marvel Studios is going to put out, I believe, isn't going to be coming out until July of next year. So there will probably be XMEN 97 Season 2, maybe Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man Season 2, animated shows coming out before that, maybe another live-action show besides Wonder Man maybe comes out between January and July. But what we're going to be talking about towards the end of today's episode is the potential villains that have been confirmed and stuff that has been rumored for the Spider-Man Brand New Day villains, and stuff that I would like to see from this movie for Tom Holland's Spider-Man 4, or, going forward in his next Spider-Man trilogy type of villains I would like to see him go up against. But just to jump into today's news, last week I did a movie review for Playdate with Kevin James and Alan Rickson, and that is on Amazon Prime Video right now, and it is now the #1 movie on Prime Video. At least it was the last time I looked, but who knows, things move fast in today's world. This could have been #1 for a day, and then another movie comes out and all of a sudden it's number 10. And then as soon as it's out of that top 10, it might as well be forgotten because, people won't see it as easy. Like the streaming platforms have such a big catalog that it's funny, like sometimes the thing you're looking for you can never find, but then the stuff that you're not looking for is just flooding into your, right in front of your face, and you're like, I don't care about this stuff, I'm looking for one particular thing, and then it's like buried. You have to search it, it's there. You're like, if I have to search it and it's there, why isn't it just there? So I feel like most people go to the apps, go to the top 10 movies and shows, and they go, oh, that's what people are watching right now? Okay, I'll watch some of this, and like, I don't know. Netflix is a weird one because like some of the stuff like comes out on Netflix on like a Tuesday, and just because there's nothing else on that platform, the newest stuff that drops is the stuff that goes like, top 10. So I think like a couple weeks ago, the Hangover movies were top 10 and everyone's like, oh, do we want another Hangover movie? It's like, no. Netflix just doesn't put anything out. So anything that is new that comes out that wasn't on there for months previous, people are like, cool, something new to watch. That's the only reason why Netflix's top 10 is weird, but the rest of them feel like pretty like, this is what people are watching, But go check out Playdate if you haven't. If you have kids, that's definitely a good movie for you. It was dumb, it was funny, it was still good, but it was dumb funny, you know what I mean? Now, a movie that I'm sure many of people are excited for because this franchise has a very big following, but there is a live-action The Legend of Zelda video game coming, and it will be released worldwide March 26, 2027, and we did get our first look at Zelda herself, which, comment below if you're in the same boat as me. When you were a kid playing Zelda, did you think Zelda was a dude? Me personally, I didn't think twice about it. I was like, oh, just wearing green, has a sword, you're fighting, he's kind of making boyish grunts. Yeah. Like, it definitely didn't sound like you were playing as like Princess Peach in Mario, you know what I mean? Like, whoa, oh, Mario, like, definitely sounded like much more of a chick. I don't know, maybe I just haven't played Zelda since my GameCube days as a kid. Maybe I have like the older Switch. Maybe I gotta get like the Switch 2 and get like, what is it, Tears of the Kingdom or the other Zelda game and play those. And comment below, any Zelda fans in the chat. Is this going to be a good movie, do you think? And do you think this girl here, I don't know her name, the actress's name, but here is our first look at Zelda. And with the pointed little elf ears, I think she looks the part pretty well, and she's a beautiful young girl, so I'm sure this movie will be great. If, the people behind Zelda are the people making the movie, I'm sure it will be fine. Now, another movie that I watched over the last couple weeks that didn't get as many views on the movie review as I thought it might because of how popular this movie is at the current moment, but Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein is one of the best movies I've seen of 2025, and, you know, just this picture got released after that came out of the Frankenstein's monsters over the years, and it goes all the way back to Boris Karloff in 1931, which is what I believe the Frankenstein that won Guillermo del Toro over to Frankenstein, where, like, for me growing up as, like, you know, Frankenstein getting exposed to him, it was really only like Halloween costumes, or maybe like 2004's Van Helsing, but that's really more about the werewolf and the Dracula of it all. But there is a Frankenstein in there for a quick second that isn't listed in this group here because he's not quite as pivotal in that movie as like these Frankensteins are. But 1944 Glenn Strange is how I picture Frankenstein more in my head, but you know, you could see how they're both kind of just ripping off whatever Boris Karloff did. But Christopher Lee, I love Christopher Lee. I would have loved to seen what his work as Frankenstein's monster in 1957 was like. And then Peter Doyle, 74. De Niro did a Frankenstein's monster in 94, but his seems much more like a maybe escaped convict, you know, with like a scarred face rather than a body that was put together by pieces of other people, which is exactly what Jacob Elordi's feels like. You know what I mean? You know, like his feels like Frankenstein to me. Like when I picture Frankenstein now, I'm going to picture Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. But then also coming up next year, we have Maggie Gyllenhaal's The Bride, where Christian Bale will be playing Frankenstein in that, and you can see like the stitches across the forehead. So he might be more of like the more traditional Frankenstein look, but still with a more modern take with it, with the, you know, maybe he's got bolts and the stitches across the forehead type thing. But there also is, I think, another Frankenstein maybe coming out next year with Sebastian Stan playing like a Romanian Frankenstein. So I don't know. I think that should be interesting as well. But big time for Frankenstein right now between Jacob Elordi's and, you know, the next two that will be coming out. But currently the most watched movies right now via Variety, 1.4 billion minutes watched, I guess, or hours watched or whatever, or just 1.4 billion people watched Frankenstein, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein on Netflix. I know my mother just watched it over the weekend, and she couldn't help herself but call me right after and go, "That was really good. The blind guy? Oh my god." You know, like, so we bonded over that one for a quick minute. But number 2 on Netflix, A House of Dynamite with Idris Elba. I haven't gone and checked that one out, but I've wanted to over the last couple weeks, but just a bunch of things had came out. A bunch of things came out in theaters. I went to the movies twice last week and saw some new stuff, so definitely some new movie reviews coming out this week. Stay tuned for that. But A House of Dynamite with Idris Elba on Netflix, 248.4 million people, or I'm not sure what the number is, if it's people or hours watched or whatever it is, but, you know, pretty big. First 2, K-Pop Demon Hunters is still doing its thing at 3. Tyler Perry's Finding Joy. Tyler Perry's put out quite a few movies this year where we were like, he's got that studio space to be filming stuff, but he did another one called Straw earlier this year with Taraji P, I think, and that one was like really good. I mean, it was bad like emotionally, but like good movie, well done. And then 5, Mango. I haven't even heard of that one. So, you know, for me, it's really like the top 3 there are K-Pop Demon Hunters still doing his thing, getting watched. But just how far and away Frankenstein is above this, I'm not sure if this is a real graphic or not, you know, but go watch Frankenstein if you haven't, and comment below if you know anything of House of Dynamite. But one of the new movies I went to see in theaters over the last week was Wicked for Good, and there will be a full movie review, talking spoilers and talking my thoughts on the film, coming out later this week, probably like Wednesday, right before Thanksgiving. But the Rotten Tomatoes for the film is sitting at 69% with 219 critics reviews, but a 96% audience score. So audiences are still loving it, much like the first Wicked. But the first part, where Wicked got very well reviewed, I believe, by the critics and audience. So this one is slightly shorter, 2 hours and 18 minutes rather than like 2 hours 46. So, you know, Wicked for Good, it is shorter, that is a plus. But, you know, my thoughts, spoiler-free thoughts, the first part I really enjoyed. You know, like, in the first part I had little gripes where, like, every song had this, you know, high note bullshit. Ariana Grande was really annoying the first movie. I didn't like her character. Where the second movie, it felt like the critiques they listened to, it just didn't do in the second movie. Where the songs in the second movie didn't have the, you know, crazy weird high notes for no reason. And, you know, like, the only real high note in that first movie that they should have had was Defying Gravity. But, like, they had it all the time. And then the second movie, there was no high notes really at all. And then Ariana Grande's character I actually quite liked more in the second one. She was maybe dialed back a little bit less, or maybe some of her annoying stuff got cut out. But I don't know, it felt like there was maybe some more of this that got trimmed down, but also maybe like it was supposed to be maybe an hour. And, you know, instead of doing a 4-hour part 1, they were like, we'll cut it here and do a 2-hour part 2. But I feel like part 1 is like a really complete, real good movie, where this does feel like just the second and third act of something. You know, like, it doesn't have its own complete movie feel to me. It does like a really good job. It still looks phenomenal, but it's also like sadder. You know, like it's, you know, I feel like the critics didn't give it as good a score because when they walked out of Wicked Part 1, they felt awesome. They were like, wow, that was great. The songs are stuck in their head. They're on like kind of a positive note, even though that first part also ends like teasing that they're going to be heading into some dark stuff. And of course, that's exactly what happened. The second movie, they're into some darker stuff. Bad stuff's happening. You know, like treating the animals poorly. They're treating Elphaba poorly. They're treating Glinda poorly. They're doing some conniving stuff, making you really hate Madame Marvel. And you're like, oh God, what's going on here? But like at the same time, you're like, this is good, but I don't know if I like it as much as the first one, you know? So I feel like people like this, but maybe they're having the same thoughts as me, and they're like, I don't know, it was kind of a downer, you know? Like, and it ends with like a kind of semi-positive note, teasing that maybe there could be some future story to happen, or maybe this is just where things end, you know? Like, who knows? I'm thinking they could do a third one, and John Chu, if you want to do a third one, friggin' start writing, my friend, and crush it, you know? Like, there's no reason why with Star Wars and Marvel and DC and all these huge franchises, there's no reason why the Wizard of Oz can't be a franchise. You're telling me if there was a Wizard of Oz park at Universal, you wouldn't go to it? Like, same way there's Harry Potter and now Super Mario, you know, Universal Land. You can do a full-on, you know, Emerald City, and like, people would go to it, you know? People would show up in their Wicked cosplays and absolutely freaking love this shit. Let alone how popular the Wizard of Oz is, right? Like, that's another thing. I'll talk more about that movie in a movie review coming later this week. But, you know, comment below your spoiler-free thoughts on Wicked, and if you went to see it, you know, what were your thoughts? But, you know, interesting that the critic score is much lower than the audience score. But, yeah, not bad, but hopefully the critic score goes up for that a little bit. I don't think it deserves not to be certified fresh, but I could see why people are maybe like, I didn't like it as much, you know? But before we get into the Spider-Man topic of today, there is a brief, real spoilery leak if you didn't want to see this. But also with like AI out there, I'm not sure if this is real or not, but like, as far as my brain is telling me, this looks pretty freaking real, you know? And as far as the set of Avengers Doomsday, we haven't seen a whole lot of leaks. But then just recently, over the last couple days, there's been a bunch of stuff coming out, and some of it's like, oh, that's really fake. Some of it's like, oh, that could be real. And with this one, it could be real, and most of the people in this picture have been confirmed by the, you know, the chairs that they are going to be in the movie. But if you don't want to see them in their costumes, you know, skip ahead a couple minutes or something if you want to wait till the Spider-Man conversation. But spoilers for anybody that doesn't want to see it, the X-Men in Avengers Doomsday, in their makeup room, you know, getting their stuff together. You could tell this is the makeup room because there's, you know, mirrors with lights around it, and they're all in their little chairs. But for their appearances in Avengers Doomsday, it looks like we got Magneto up front here in his full comic book outfit, but Ian McKellen's got a nice beard look going on. I don't know if we've ever seen Magneto with a beard in his previous roles. Of course, you got Sir Patrick Stewart, Sir Ian McKellen as well, don't you forget the Sirs in front of them, but Sir Patrick Stewart coming back as Professor X. You got James Marsden on the left there in his full Cyclops garb with the yellow strap going around the front. I love to see that. Rebecca Romijn in a full white Mystique outfit with red hair. Like, ooh, like if you know from her appearances in the previous X-Men movies, she was blue before, but she was mostly naked. So at least if she's gonna be blue, it's just like her face and maybe her hands, and the rest of her can be covered by this sexy suit. And Rebecca Romijn is fucking gorgeous, so she crushes it. Gambit, we'll come back to him, but next to him is Teyonah Parris, which wasn't on the chairs, but from the Marvel's post-credit scene, it was almost positive she was going to be in this movie because they confirmed that Hank McCoy, something Fraser, he was on the show Frasier. What was his actor's name? Oh god, that's gonna bug me all day. But you get what I mean. Beast was in the post-credit scene of the Marvels, and he was confirmed to be in Avengers Doomsday by the chairs. He's not in this picture, obviously, because probably Beast is fully CGI, and if the actor was on set, he's probably in CGI pajamas, or maybe not there at all, and he's just doing the voice after the fact. But, you know, Teyonah Parris is there, so she's going to be with these X-Men people. And then we got Alan Cummings in his full Nightcrawler look with the blue outfit, blue hair, yellow eyes, and he's got his gloves with the 3 fingers. And I'm sure there's a tail behind him somewhere, but he's got his full comic book outfit as well, which is awesome. Like, but then going back to Channing Tatum in the middle there, he doesn't have his hair, so maybe he will have like a wig or, you know, that will go over his head with the mask, you know, and the hair like we saw in Deadpool and Wolverine. But if this is his look, I'm also not mad. You know, shaved head Channing with a scar down his face, and hopefully they tell us how he got that scar. But Gambit, Mystique, Cyclops, Nightcrawler, I mean, what is her name? Spectre, Pulsar, whatever Teyonah Parris' name is, and then Magneto and Professor X, just all in one photo in full comic book outfits. That's awesome. You know, and this is just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people that are a part of this movie, and we know maybe 60 to 80 people that will be in this movie. Like, that's crazy. This movie's gonna be nuts. I can't wait, and I can't wait till we see a trailer or something from this film. Like, all we've really had is leaks, and it's crazy that we're like almost a year out from Avengers Doomsday, and we still know fractionally nothing about it. But alright, I think it's time to get into the potential Spider-Man Brand New Day villains. And I love this little poster for Spider-Man Brand New Day, but it's like kind of in an animated style. And it says, "Let me tell you something, webhead." And, you know, "Let me tell you something" is pretty much what friggin' Punisher says constantly. If you haven't seen those memes going around, you will. Just, "Let me tell you something. Hey, Red." You know, like Punisher's always screaming, saying some dumbass shit, but he's also saying some smart shit. You know, he's a beast. Like, I love Punisher. I love John Bernthal as Punisher, so it's hyped that he's going to be in this movie with Spider-Man, as well as you can see Hulk is going to be in this movie. I hope he is big, green, and angry again. Not Smart Hulk. I would like aggressive Hulk again, but, you know, even if Smart Hulk's in this, it's still pretty cool that we get Hulk and Punisher next to Spider-Man. Like, out of all, on my bingo card of people I thought might show up in this movie, Punisher and Hulk were not on my list, I guarantee it. But some stuff that has been confirmed, I believe the actor's name is Marvin Jones III? I could be wrong though, but either way, he's going to be playing Tombstone, and he played Tombstone or voiced Tombstone in the animated Into the Spider-Verse. So he is reprising his role as Tombstone back in the live action version now, but in Spider-Man Brand New Day. And then we also have the guy that played Scorpion from Spider-Man Homecoming, all the way from Spider-Man Homecoming, and he was only briefly in the movie, and we only knew him really as Scorpion from the Scorpion tattoo on his neck, and he was talking to Vulture at the very, very, very end of Spider-Man Homecoming, Tom Holland's first Spider-Man. I'm hoping we get this guy back as Scorpion, but in the green, you know, mechanical suit, kind of like the PlayStation Spider-Man video game. And that version of the character and that suit looks awesome. And I just think that that would be a great villain for Spider-Man. Out of all of the movies, we haven't really gotten a Spider-Man and Scorpion, and I think this would be a great way to do that, and a great way for this character to look, you know? Like, you can't just have that guy and show his face and then have him with a tail, you know, just be like, oh, he's Scorpion. Like, no. I want the full green suit here with the red eyes and the poison tail and the claws, and yeah. I don't know who made that suit for him. Maybe that could be a part of the story as well, but I really loved that PlayStation and PlayStation 5 Spider-Man 2 video games. They were really good, and, you know, speaking of those games, one of the villains in that was Mr. Negative, and people have been very much so clamoring for a Mr. Negative, because, especially because Dustin Daniel Cretton is the director. They're like, oh, that Asian connection? He should definitely do the first Asian villain, Mr. Negative, to fight Spider-Man, you know what I mean, in live action. And Martin Lee in the game was an incredible villain, but also very complex character, where like he's bad, but he's also kind of good, you know, like he's somewhere in the middle, you know, like not all Spider-Man villains are just pure evil, like they're kind of on a spectrum of somewhere in the middle, you know what I mean? But what if Martin Lee, Mr. Negative, was played by Steven Yeun, who the voice of Invincible, and also was in Beef, I believe. But he's a very good actor, and award-winning actor for Beef. And if he was Mr. Negative across from Tom Holland, I could be very much so here for that. You know, my only other choice, and just pretty much because he's Asian, is Jackie Chan. You know, like, I think like an older Mr. Negative, but also somebody that could fucking, you know, kick fucking Spider-Man's ass hand to hand, not using his Mr. Negative powers, would be impressive. But, you know, probably in the more correct age range, Mr. Steven Yeun, or Yun, whatever, however you pronounce it. But, yeah, I really like him as Mr. Negative. And like I was saying, Scorpion from the video game would be a really nice touch. So, like, if you got Tombstone, Mr. Negative, Scorpion, and then, you know, maybe have a Rhino. And I like the Rhino from the game as well. But, like, the last time we seen Rhino in live action, Paul Giamatti's Rhino from the very end of Spider-Man 2, Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man 2, the Amazing Spider-Man 2, we only saw him for like a brief second at the end, and he was in this like big tank Rhino machine, and he looked like an interesting character. But I kind of like Alexei in this giant mechanical suit, but he's also kind of a giant dude, you know, and the giant dudeness is getting enhanced by the Rhino suit, but he's also not that bright, you know. I don't like Duck of Goose. No more Duck of Goose! You know, like, if you know, you know. What a great character. But then in Spider-Man 2, the video game, KRAVEN the Hunter was a phenomenal character. Probably not going to be Aaron Taylor Johnson in the MCU, you know, especially after his kind of failed Sony Universe project. I mean, not that his movie was that bad that it failed, just Sony in general doing the spum-C shit failed, and he happened to be the last one. But Madam Web and Morbius before him were way worse movies. But KRAVEN also had its problems, but it wasn't Aaron Taylor Johnson's fault, or Russell Crowe, or anyone else in that film. It was Sony's fault, and you could tell. But KRAVEN was a badass character in a sick storyline in Spider-Man 2, but then also leaving it up for, like, you know, what if his brother, CAMELLION's there? Then that could cause all types of problems, where you got this guy, you know, walking around as somebody else, using other people's faces and blending in crowds. You can't necessarily hunt him down. You know, it brings a lot more mistrust to things. You know, like a CAMELLION could be a very interesting villain. But if you saw my shirt, the villain I want is more of like the Spider-Man PlayStation 4 Spider-Man 1 villain of Doc Ock, where him and Doc Ock were working together, and, you know, it would be interesting because now our Peter knows a Doc Ock and knows the potential of a Doc Ock going bad, but also would know that he can fix him and make him back to, like, the normal guy. Hello, Peter. You know, like, and speaking of Doc Ock, that's going to be this week's Hot Toys unboxing, so stay tuned for that this weekend. But Doc Ock's my guy, you know what I mean? And I loved Alfred Molina's Doc Ock. But the Doc Ock's story from the Spider-Man video game is so good that if they did anything remotely close to that for Tom Holland Spider-Man in his new Brand New Day and the Day trilogy, I would love that. You know, like, say this movie, Brand New Day, is like a Mr. Negative Scorpion movie. Maybe it's like Rhino and Chameleon and KRAVEN in the next one. And then maybe in the third one you get like a Doc Ock, but it's more of like a Sinister Six. Like, I don't know. I feel like this movie could be really epic, but also then the Punisher and the Hulk of it all throw me, and then Sadie Sink, who could she be? I don't know. Comment your ideas about Spider-Man Brand New Day. If you have any theories, I'd love to hear those, or you can message me on my other social medias. Links for those down in the description below. Send me a message if you want to talk more Spider-Man Brand New Day. But I'd also love to hear, like, who is your villains that you want to see Spider-Man face off? Is there some people that we have seen that you want to see Tom Holland fight? Or is there some characters that we haven't seen in live action that we really should? And please leave a comment down in the comment section below. I would really love to chat with y'all more about what we talked about today in Spider-Man Brand New Day coming up next year. So stay tuned for more content talking about Marvel and what's coming up next. Another weekly nerdy news will be coming out next Monday. More movie reviews for Wicked for Good, The Running Man, Caught Stealing comes out tomorrow. Freakier Friday comes out at some point this week. Happy Thanksgiving to all you folks. Thank you guys so much. If you made it this far in the video and you would like to support the channel, the best way of doing that is liking this video, commenting down in the comment section below, hitting that subscribe button if you haven't already, and hitting that bell so you don't miss future Comically Boston weekly nerdy news Monday morning podcasts, and you get the notification when those come out. Once again, my name's Big Cam, 2 G's in the Big, pretty much anywhere, and you can find me, and I'll see you beautiful people in the next one. Peace.